Algonia, fear, doubt, and disbelief. Free your mind.
Come learn how to build a home, one that's all your own. Get rid of the mortgage and the rent. Get done with figuring out where to live. We're breathing life into the buildings that we leave. Come and learn how to build with AirCrete. We'll show you all you need, from beginning to the end. Come stay in the desert and come make yourself a couple of friends. No matter the weather, you'll live safely in your AirCrete shelter. We're leaving Babylon and Rome for your true home. Come build with me. Let's build a new reality. Yeah, let's build a world we want to see. Come and build with me. Any shape, any size, any piece of land, small or wide. From tiny homes to communes with domes, all across the land. Yes, we can live free with AirCrete. Come and build with me with AirCrete. Come build with me.
All right, welcome everybody. Trying a bunch of new stuff on this live broadcast tonight, so I'd like to make these kind of a regular thing. We're going to just start out discussing some ideas, some things I've been mulling over for communities after getting a hold of people. And to that end, I want to support anything that you guys are doing to help make your lives better and set yourselves free. So, if you have anything that you would like to share with other people, if you're selling product to support your family and your lifestyle, if you have anything you'd like to post in the chat, just go right ahead and do that. I don't believe in being shy at all, because quite frankly, a worker is worth their wage, and we all have to make money, and we have to begin to shift that mindset so that we learn to monetize our life and what we do to support ourselves without the normal jobs. So also, if any of you guys for the next live broadcast want me to share something about especially any communities you have, if you're interested in doing interviews, or you just want to promote something, then get in contact with me at tinygiantlife.biz. Use any of the contact forms and just let me know. I'll be more than happy to post it up as long as it's family appropriate. And to that ends, we'll get going. Let's start with basically what is the foundation of our current society, and then let's work towards why we don't see any real change and why we don't see any, powerful and strong communities. So basically, the foundation of our current society, and in a lot of ways, is, money. Money is unfortunately the measure by which we store the value for the labor we've done to exchange for the value that other people have. And of course, we're using Federal Reserve notes here in the US, which is basically just, a private script by a private bank. I hate to break it to a lot of people, but when you pay your taxes to the IRS, none of that money goes to support the funds. This is all a manufactured Ponzi scheme, if you will, in my opinion. Nothing's been fact checked. And while I give a disclaimer here, nothing here tonight is to be considered legal advice or financial advice whatsoever. This is just for entertainment purposes and to stimulate our minds. So let's take a look at cash. We've got cash coming up, and we've got the new Fed coin potentially right around the corner, a new digital currency that you could be chained to. If you accept the universal basic income, it's probably going to be programmable and only spendable where permitted. And then we've got cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, of course, Bitcoin being potentially the worst one there is, and the absolute best one like Cloudcoin having zero interest whatsoever. In fact, China may be very well ready to crack all of this encryption with quantum computing. But nonetheless, it can represent the people's currency. And then beyond that, you've got the Liberty Dollar. Liberty Dollar is an organization basically that allows you to buy and sell silver, and you can exchange it with other users online. You don't have to tote around physical gold, but certainly physical gold in this space would be pretty much the same thing. Liberty Dollar, you can cash out anytime for real gold or have payments sold out and sent over to your PayPal account and hopefully eventually to your bank account. And it sounds nice, and it sounds like, yeah, we need some kind of money that's ours. But why is that? Why does it matter? I mean, is it really worth having crypto? Well, the truth is that it doesn't matter at all at this point. I don't really care. I mean, yeah, you can park some value in gold. Maybe it's safe from deflation. Maybe you can put some money in Bitcoin and make money on long-term investments. Maybe you'll just sell out your fiat for digital fiat, a digital dollar. But you see, the problem is that everything that you want comes from the system of the controllers and those who do everything to you and around you that you don't want. You can't possibly break free so long as you have to exchange anything that you have back into their private currency. So to that ends, this is where true communities of freedom have to be developed. You have to develop parallel economies, because the only way this works is if we only buy outside of their system. And yes, I know there will always be people that are willing to barter and exchange who are in the system to get the things we want. And the reality is that our communities at this time do not provide the goods and services that we want. So, as we think about building these alternative communities and building parallel economies, the foundation of all of these communities is going to be a fundamental change in our life and our lifestyle. Quite frankly, it's probably going to mean giving up a whole lot of those things that we think we need. And just simply changing our habits. And that can be very hard. As soon as YouTube started censoring people along with everyone else and taking government funds for it, like Twitter, everybody's just like, well, I'm just going to invent a new tube and go over to new tube and we'll have the exact same version of the same old thing. Instead of looking forward to new technologies or implementing things in new ways, it's just the same old stuff over. And so, at least in the beginning, it's probably going to mean some sacrifice in giving up some things, some real effort to change the way we do things. And if there's anything whatsoever you do in your life, you need to find a way to monetize it. I don't care if you've got a tennis ball on your dresser that you want to sell. It should go into some kind of community sales space first. And you should be offering your services and goods there. And of course, that marketplace, there's Open Bazaar. There's a few decentralized Agora type markets, which are not easy or friendly to use. So really there isn't a site or technology in place yet. And certainly nobody's using the interplanetary file system and hosting their files on their own computers. None of us are using the Brave browser to browse private sites. And unless this fundamental change happens where we all begin to work together and create this parallel economy, then all you're really doing is trading time for money that devalues, getting private script, and exchanging it for goods and services. And now I know a lot of people absolutely do not like the idea of changing what they're doing. But there's going to have to be some give and take. There's going to have to be these changes made. And once these changes are made, then you could use really any cryptocurrency, a custom cryptocurrency, Liberty Dollar. If you were so inclined, you could lug around chunks of metal. But the point being that once you're in a private economy and you have no need whatsoever to exchange back into the national fiat currency, then you're free. Your money's not devalued. Your loans are not controlled. You have a truly free market. And in the beginning, the only way that this can realistically happen is if we begin to build our own houses, build our own communities, remove every attachment to the system that absolutely requires their fiat currency. I know there's quite a few people that have actually been able to make their life workable by using cryptocurrency only for the people willing to exchange for it. But, when you think about community, it's a collective of people actually working together and looking out for one another, actually engaging in community, communing together and engaging in every aspect of life. And in the beginning, that might mean just buying used stuff, accepting the lower standard of living, transitioning from a small house to a tiny house, or a large house to a small house. It might mean, depending on where you're at, you might actually want the freedom of not requiring a job anymore to be able to support your lifestyle. And whenever you get to a point where you can support 80% or more of your entire life, and that is, your housing, your land, your food, your transportation, your energy, your sanitation, your play, your toys, everything that you need, then you have time. Then you have freedom. You get your mind back and you begin to actually discover what you really want, what you really, really want. and what brings true peace and fulfillment to your life, something that a busy life doesn't give you the time to discover. But it's not like we have to return to an Amish style of living, although that might be where it starts for some of us. We might be willing to trade our business skills for someone else to grow our high quality food without poisons, GMOs, and cannibalism, human aborted baby ingredients in their food. So we can make better choices, or we can take the leap and just step out in faith. So now let's talk about what's really possible in community. You have your land, your house, your shelter, your food. Maybe you like to do blacksmithing. Maybe someone else does blacksmithing. Now you have swords and ironwork. If you have a woodworker, you have cabinetry. Maybe you get somebody that actually makes glass. And then moving up from there, it is possible with the technology that we have to use 3D printers and scrap plastic, or scrap metal and metal printers and induction cookers. We can 3D print our own vehicles. We can cast engine blocks and make combustion engines. Heck, if you're willing to spare the space, you can use blackberry juice and make a low efficiency solar panel that could be wiped and re-3D printed every couple of weeks so that you have free ongoing solar power. You can 3D print an electric motor that's nearly as efficient as a good commercial motor. So my point is that anything's possible. There's even a high school student who is printing his own solid state circuitry in his garage. So now you've got chips and circuits. So now you can start bringing in TVs and computers. They're not going to be near the standard of the commercial stuff that's available, but we can always trade. We are probably always going to have something that we trade with the system, whether it's food for money, or like a farmer of old would have a cash crop. They always had a portion of what they did that they sold for money, and that money was used to buy tools and goods and services and travel. So we probably will always be doing that, because the truth is virtually no one actually wants to be free. And that's even a question that I would ask and have you guys think about is, do I actually want freedom? I mean, really, the benefits and privileges of the system are great. But what we have to realize is that when they tell you you have to have insurance, or you have to have a driver's license, or you have to be locked in your house for 2 weeks going on 2 years for something they made up, when they tell you we're not going to sell you gasoline cars in California or 17 other states, or they tell you we're going to shut off the gas production, or they tell you you can't have this because your carbon credits are too high. Well, quite frankly, they have every right in the world to control you and to turn off anything and everything. And the reason is it belongs to them. It is not yours. America hasn't functioned or existed in a long time. And as the corporate US goes, it's all about the money, the resources, the equitable interest in the use of those resources. And all the big names, all the big companies that are buying up the world and controlled by somewhere between 9 and 12 families that own and control everything, they have locked up the resources. They are your sole supply for your very existence. So until we begin to take responsibility and have the ability to respond to our own needs and create in our life those things we need, and for our community to collectively create those things, then we will always be under that control. The only true freedom can come in a parallel economy through communities that create goods and services and trade. And anything is possible. I have met people who can build airplanes out of styrofoam and plant products and home cast aluminum engines. It's truly amazing what can be done. The question is, for most people, what is it that I really want to do? Because most people really just want the system. They want the handcuffs on, they want the polished, the golden bars on their cage, and they don't want to make the change and effort that's necessary. And quite frankly, one of the biggest areas of change and growth is in our own personal life, that personal development. It takes real work to recognize and overcome the automatic programs that run in our life that our school and our parents and our friends have installed upon us, those things which handicap us and prevent us from being free. So that personal work alone is a tremendous amount of work. But then when you talk about changing every habit in your life, it's not a path to be taken lightly. But it is a path that, so long as you are growing, it will get there. You know, when you look at nature, life is either growth or death. It's one or the other. Very little time is spent stagnant. So I'll just put this out there in that we need to all be expanding our minds and discovering what's possible. So let's go back to making the good old cash. You know, as a foundation of any community, and quite frankly, every community starts with an individual, and therefore it has to start with an income stream, a job. So you need to consider putting in the effort it takes to generate income from home. And with the internet at our fingertips, we have access to millions and millions of people. You know, I found a guy who sells books and courses teaching people how to drink their own pee. And he's made a fair amount of money at it. and I bring that example up because it's so ridiculous. And yet, if he can pay his rent doing that, there really is just no excuse that we can't do it ourselves. And yes, it may mean eventually or initially scaling our life down to make it work. You know, when you want to live the typical American pipe dream, it takes a tremendous amount of money. When you want to start the typical American pipe dream business, that means you're going to hire a different company for every aspect of everything that is done. And that means you're paying the living of a substantial number of people plus multiple people's company retirements. And that's what makes goods and services so stinking expensive and so hard to start a business. And it's also the reason why most businesses fail in 2 years. But if you learn a little bit of marketing, learn how to reach the people you want to reach, you can begin where you are. There was a lady who had Yopon holly trees on her land, and her neighbors had them. And she found out that the Native Americans drank it because it was a caffeine-containing plant. So she started clipping these leaves, roasting them, doing light, medium, and dark roast, and selling them on the internet. And eventually, someone in Japan discovered it, and it became a fad over there, something new and novel and tasty. And now she makes over $50,000 every month picking leaves off a tree that is considered to be a weed. A tree that is hated by her local farmers and ranchers, and yet now she's leasing multiple people's pasture just to harvest this worthless weed. So take time, start where you're at, and obviously I really encourage you to learn to still your mind, get quiet and be still. Take up some meditation practice of becoming aware that you're not your mind, you're not the thoughts in your mind, you're not the world around you, and just observe. And eventually, when your mind stills and you hold a single thought, you would be amazed at how many business ideas you can have. I have a list so long now, I couldn't possibly get more than 3 or 4, maybe 5 of these businesses. So just start adjusting your mindset. Start listening to things like Think and Grow Rich. There's a Earl Nightingale reading, a summarized, condensed version on YouTube. Listen to it. Open your mind to the possibility, because that programming is hard to let go of. I worked in construction for 30 years, building other people's houses, and not once did I say, hey, I'm going to build a house and sell it, and I'm going to make the $100,000. I could have been a millionaire. But I was taught, you work hard for your money. Rich people are evil. Money is the root of all evil. And because of these beliefs, I was never able to be free. All I could do is work a job where the majority of the value of that which my time produced went to the owner of the business, taxes and insurance. It didn't go to me. So we all need to start looking at ways we can augment our income. And this quite likely may mean giving up the dopamine hits of TikTok, getting off of social media, and actually sacrificing our evenings to essentially work a second job for a period of time. But it's well worth it. And once you have that fundamental foundation of an income, you got it made. And with that income, you can buy some land where no one can tell you what to do, and you can build a house. We teach AirCrete workshops. We teach you how to build them, but I don't care what kind of house you build yourself a house, because it's in the building of your house that you receive the majority of the savings, especially when done without a loan. And with that foundation, you're able to live extremely well, extremely cheaply. If I had have known about this or discovered this in the 90s, before I was even in my mid 20s, I could have been basically living a living retirement, not waiting till I'm so old that I can't climb a mountain anymore. I found that with so little money, it's possible to travel the world. It's possible to have the things you want because you have zero expense. And now we'll move off that topic of money because, it's just simply the foundation of most of what we do. But look for that side hustle, look for what you can do, and start adjusting your mindset. And it's only when we have this self-sufficiency as individuals that we're going to be able to branch out and move into a self-sufficiency as a community. But as we become a community, we become substantially stronger. We become much, much more able as a community to have much greater levels of comfort and luxury. You get more and more skilled people and skilled tradesmen who can provide everything that a community could want. And, to that ends, building those communities as, a single community on one piece of land can actually be pretty difficult because often people say, I want something to the equivalent of a house in the country, on the ocean, next to a waterfall and a stream, beside a Starbucks, a shopping mall, and a organic food store. And so a lot of times unrealistic expectations or waiting to find something perfect, people don't move forward. So since nothing perfect actually exists in people or land, I would encourage you to simply build it. Or find yourself a community that will allow you in, that has an equitable situation for the efforts you put into that community. But either way, get started. We don't have to be together on one piece of land to form community. We have UPS, USPS, and FedEx, and we can sell and offer our goods over the internet and ship them. We can build decentralized communities. If you think about it, that's the way America really started. Everybody got a piece of land, they built up their existence, and then they built up the things they were nicer and more luxurious in their life. And then cities and communities began to form, and it continued to grow, and yet everyone was free to do what they wished on their own property, having control of their own assets. And yet they would gather together. For example, I met a guy who was raised in a community where basically twice a year they would have a jamboree. Everyone would bring the surplus and the things they didn't want, set them on the town square, and you were free to take anything you wanted without expense. For example, a widow, all she could do at her age was make quilt blankets from used clothing that people donated. And yet, when it came time on the square, every family had picked up a blanket and kept themselves warm, and it didn't cost them anything. Another family brought in apricots. Another person brought in beef jerky and vegetables. And so everybody had everything they needed because they had a community that, while separate, came together and exchanged what they needed. Now, whether that exchange is represented in the form of, a cryptocurrency to track and prevent fraud of your value, which makes it easier, for example, to exchange maybe a bicycle for a pig when the person who wants the bicycle doesn't raise pigs, etc. It makes sense to have some form of accounting to do that. But certainly, we should always keep an eye toward that more perfect world, a quantum leap where you give because you love and you receive the abundance of people who share what they love, and everybody has enough. But we have to make a half step first. And so back to the idea of currencies and money, use something. Use something like the Liberty Dollar. Use something like the Bitcoin in community. But whatever you use, get started and start practicing community while you build business. And I'm going to open this up now to comments. I've not been keeping up with a whole lot of the comments here. But if any of you have experience in community or wish to share anything, then certainly just, I wish we had a voice chat here, but just type it in the box here. Gordon says, grow more than you can eat. Yeah, absolutely, Gordon. That's a great way to go. In fact, I would say if you're growing much food at all, it's almost impossible to not grow more than you can eat. So then the question becomes, how can you either gift that to someone or sell it to them? Maybe you need to grind it into powder and sell it to the community in a dehydrated powder that can be added for nutrition to soup during the winter months. Find a way to make it a value add product, a tomato might sell for $1, but slice that thing up and dry it, put olive oil on it with some spices. Now that same tomato in a bag sells for $4 to $9. Make it value add and make it something that can be exchanged in a decentralized manner with the greater community. I think most people would find that if, for example, you got a new cell phone and your existing cell phone's okay, what if it became part of the community basket? And I know that the marketplace, the Agora, doesn't really exist, but it could easily be set up, even if it was some software like Craigslist. I would love to see people use decentralized and uncontrollable methods a little bit more like OpenBazaar. But so far, people are so divided and going so many directions, it's hard to get everybody in one place, but it's coming. Yeah, barter rather than using the dollar. That's a great point. Find ways to barter with people. There was a video that was popular some years ago about a guy who took a paperclip and traded his way all the way up to owning a house from a paperclip. So, barter can be very useful. It really can. Me and my tribe plan on building a community quite a number of years from now. I'm really grateful for your videos. Well, I'm glad I try to put some value in those videos, and I just want to keep floating ideas. I'm trying not to get stuck on just AirCrete, because it's not just about AirCrete. It's just about, look at what's possible. This world's so full of, ick. It's really nice just to have something good for a change. And move in a direction towards freedom. We'll be covering more building techniques as well. We're going to be starting to build some natural cast earth buildings because it's easier and faster than rammed earth. It's more consistent, doesn't require heavy machinery, and it can be built with a double wall and insulation, so it's thermally passive, highly insulated, and performs well like a modern building. Communities need to vet their members, favoring service to other type personalities. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I've even been kicking this idea around of vetting people. And as an extreme example, if you look at the Essenes, of whom Jesus the Nazarenes was part of, and even the modern Essenes today, they required that you surrender all of your worldly possessions to the community to join them. And then after 3 years, if you wanted to stay, the assets were distributed and used for the benefit of everyone. And if you wanted to leave, you got everything back. But I think I wouldn't want to go that far. But, I do notice that most people can't get along, and most people are selfish, and most people are unwilling to downsize their life. Um, and in my mind, to join a community, I kind of favor what Fukuoka did in Japan when people came to live and work and learn what he had to teach. He basically required them to build and live in a small mud hut in connection with nature for 1 to 2 years. Talk about a vetting process. Someone might actually grow and break the addictions in their life, and then you would find out very quickly how committed they are if they're willing to serve the greater community, sacrificing what they offer. And I'm not saying that's the way to go. I'm just saying that it's very difficult, and there's so many struggles and squabbles and fights and selfish things that go on in a lot of communities. They just don't really last like they should. And then other communities, they don't have an equitable means for people to come and leave the community. And that's where I had talked about once before, the idea of having basically an exchange for a tribal currency that you buy in your membership, and that covers the cost of building your house. And if you want to go, you get to sell that back to the exchange and cash out and go your merry way, including the time that you've spent working in the community being tracked. That would be kind of like a crypto exchange where you buy some crypto, you hold it, and then if you're just ready to move on or jump crypto ships, or jump communities, then you would be able to sell out both the value of your living structure plus the value of the time that you've put in there, and take that value with you to another community. That way it's equitable for everyone, and the community makes like a 3, 4, 5% exchange rate, just like a Visa card does, every time someone comes in or out. And that money would go to serve the greater community. Oh, Gordon, you're building AirCrete Dome? That's awesome. Be sure to send some pictures my way if you haven't already. Yeah, Deer Creek has 5 acres out in West Tennessee. Currently 2 families living there in tiny homes. I know it's been an adventure too. And I'm sure having built that, you're now faced with new challenges, but that's the beauty of it. And if there's any of you other guys, anybody else out in Tennessee, there's certainly a lot of like-minded people in Tennessee and Texas who have gotten out there and really started doing some good work. Let's see. Oh, yep. Sorry. I just realized I hadn't even turned my webcam on this whole time. So, we're going to try to continue these kinds of meetings. We're going to try to, grow the idea, continue to offer more ideas, and, we're going to share more services, more things out there. We have, got a video here I'm going to play for you. And this is from Lance. He's a member of a community here in Texas. And, if you're looking for becoming a member of a community, then certainly consider checking out what their community might have to offer, because it's together that we grow. And if any of you who watch this video recorded later on, if you have a community you would like to have presented on one of these live videos, just contact me and we'll put the video up. So here we go. Seem to have lost it in the shuffle. Here we go.
Hello, and welcome to Lightning Ranch Intentional Community. My name is Lance Rayborn, and I'm one of the members here at Lightning Ranch Community. And we just wanted to introduce you to what we got going on here in Merkel, Texas, which is really exciting. So to further introduce you to the community, I will welcome Richard Weaver, the founder, and piece together here a video that we gave on the Foundations for Intentional Community interview series, and you can go check that out on YouTube. But here's a clip of that here, and I'll follow up with some more information later.
I'm the founder, Richard Weaver, and I bought this ranch in 2018. So, well, actually, we got started in 2019. This Earthship started it all. The picture of the Earthship there, I built it in 2002. It is on this ranch, but it was built long before this was a community. It's fully off-grid, built with tire walls. It embraces all the attributes of sustainability: passive solar heating, solar electricity, rainwater collection, composting toilets, gray water processing, and a planter. Here's two contrasting pictures of our ranch. Now we're in rural Texas, right on the edge between a rainier, wetter area and desert. On the left is looking out of our communal house. On the right is looking down into one of our canyons. Looks very much like Utah and Arizona. We have all this beautiful red clay. Here's our communal house. Creating a well-running, stable community is priority number one. And the hub of our community is the communal house. Here's a view inside. On the left is the great room where we meet for retreats, including yoga, qigong, dance nights, movie nights, and other recreational and educational activities. This house also has a big communal kitchen, bathrooms, and 4 bedrooms. Growing healthy food is priority number 2 for Lightning Ranch. We have created a 1-acre vegetable garden watered from a well with a solar pump. We had to build an 8-foot fence to keep the deer and the wild pigs out. The other part of our agricultural operation are the animals, and we're just getting started on this. We have 30 acres that we're going to turn into intensive grazing. When I bought the ranch, it was in really bad shape, and we're now restoring our pastures with native perennial grasses. We plan on doing intensive grazing operations with goats, cows, and chickens. We're going to move this every day. It'll be contained in an electric fence. This mimics how bison graze the Great Plains. It's the Joel Salatin Gabe Brown method, for those of you that know about intensive grazing. Creating healthy, sustainable housing is priority number 3 for Lightning Ranch. We have beautiful clay, which we're using to build our earth bag tiny homes.
So that interview was done before we actually attended an AirCrete workshop in Terlingua, Texas, hosted by Tiny Giant Lifestyle by Daniel. And it was one of the most fascinating experiences that I've ever had, and was so grateful to be able to attend. We learned all types of amazing sustainable building techniques using AirCrete. So this year we have the goal to build several AirCrete houses, and Daniel taught us just how quick and effective and even cheap and sustainable this can really be. But we need more people here to help us. So come check us out and put Daniel's AirCrete techniques to use. So we are a founding community with only a few members, but we are really excited about everything that we're doing. One of our major pushes right now is to get more members here, and we want you to check us out. So if any of this interests you, please check out our website at lightningranchhealing.weebly.com, and you can find out more information about our membership and other things that we got going on. We just want to welcome you to all that it is that we're doing. One of the most common things people say is, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe people are doing this in the middle of Texas." And it's like, yes, there are people living freely, building sustainable houses, growing their own food, living conscious lifestyles. And we want you to be a part of it. So if this resonates with you, please check us out. And have a wonderful, amazing, happy 2023 New Year. Maybe we'll see you here.
All right, Lance, thanks for sharing. Community has so much potential, and until you've had a taste, access to something like that, you just don't realize how little we need all of this distractive garbage and stuff that's in our lives now. So if people are willing to depart from the normal and to start off closer to nature, they often find that it's powerful, it's beautiful, and that all the garbage, once you're detoxed from that in your life, was meaningless. And certainly the only thing we have to spend actually in our life is the currency of our time. And so it's a beautiful thing to do it in community, because in nature, 1 + 1 is 3 or more. It's not 2. It breaks the model, and the model is a model that is exploitive to benefit a few people at the top. But when you build community, you can create a lot of entirely new life in your life. You can change your mindset and increase your happiness to such a level that it's really hard to describe. And yet a lot of communities struggle to find good members. And it's interesting. Like when I work by myself to do the gardening 100% for my food, it takes me on average 2 to 3 hours per day, and then a few full days once in a while. And it's an absolute pleasure, certainly not a chore. And it leaves the rest of your time open to grow and to help others. But when you have other people who are involved and actively watching out for each other, the things like the gardening just solve themselves, because every time somebody walks by, they spend 5 or 10 minutes maybe picking off a few bugs, bringing in the right produce, preserving something, planting something, and collectively it just gets done to what seems like no effort whatsoever. And obviously that depends on the type of gardening you're doing. About the latex cement comment, that actually does work really well. And it's hard to get good latex paint to do that with, but you can use acrylic cement bonding agent instead of the latex. It works much better, and it is a great way to put up a roof. It's also a great way to put a coat on a wall. Our AirCrete buildings have something not so dissimilar, except we don't use the sand, although the sand or fiber certainly could be used and probably would be a great benefit. There's just so much out there, so much that's possible. Let's see. Mark saw on the David Knight show on Rumble an interview. Can a state bank, let's see, coming hard and fast, can a state bank protect? Yeah. Well, I think the general idea, the general consensus is that it's not really in any question that they're going to have to bring the pain and the chaos to get everyone to accept change, to whatever that may be. And from everything I gather, that change is not good. They say they want a more equitable solution, but they, being the bankers, means they want to just absolutely outright own everything. When they did the Great New Deal, they essentially sold us into slavery, our biological property, and all of our physical property as collateral to the international bankers. And at that point, America died and everyone lost control of their money. And, that is a real problem. And it can be solved with our own scripts in our own communities. We can build our own lives, and we can even learn how to limit our legal liabilities to do business in the private, like the Liberty Dollar does, where you don't have to report on members within the association because it's private and it's already been through the Supreme Court. We have a chiropractor and a masseuse who have set up their business now entirely in a PMA, and one small restaurant owner who bucked the system and did not shut down to mandates and simply handed back their sales tax collection paper, as well as their liquor serving license. Everyone becomes a member, and they operate entirely privately without any public anything, and they get to keep everything. So much more is possible once we learn, and I would like to encourage you to consider legal things, to begin with, to realize how fraudulent this system is and to begin to unlock your mind. Start looking up words, the prefixes and the postfixes, and the origins of the word in an etymology dictionary. And you'll find really quickly that you would become undefeatable by logic and fact should you just begin to question everything. That's something that a lot of communities and people are weak on. I just had to throw that in there because I'm not sure that in this new world system of governance that you can really afford to continue to turn your control over to the government, who is going to send a big fat R, a D, or even an independent to be your savior. They've had hundreds of years to get it right, and they consistently fail to do anything that matters to you. And so we have to build in those strengths within ourselves to at least become aware of the meanings of things. And once you start tugging on that little thread, the whole tapestry comes undone and legal becomes easy. So just want to throw that in there for anybody who might be kind of wondering, or thinking, isn't it too bad that we lost the old America, or that I have to obey these evil codes and statutes? Well, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you don't. And you have to start taking responsibility for all aspects so that you have the ability to respond when challenged or you have a need. Let's see. All right. I don't see any more comments, but I do recommend, if you have the ability to invest or preserve money, definitely put something back into something that may increase in value or decrease in value. I mean, I love crypto and what it represents. The ability for the people to have their own money is tremendous, quite frankly. And I don't know exactly where it is. I know that quantum computing is going to crack the encryption soon enough. But still, I love the idea. And I don't know if parking money in crypto is necessarily the best thing in the long term. I know that, I have made 400% on my, small investments in Bitcoin 4 times over the last few years, basically a 1,600% increase. Because generally over the long term of the Bitcoin, it's always gone up. Maybe when it hits inflation, it'll go on up. But we made a decision, we're not in a place where we have really enough money to have an investment strategy, even though I do now fully comprehend the importance and the ability for an investment strategy to make money work for you instead of working for money. Instead, at this time, we chose to simply put, as Elon Musk said, we chose to put our cash into things instead of money. So, for example, we went out and bought some water tanks and some pond liners. We put in water catchment, and now we have more than enough water from the rain here in the desert to grow all of the food for one person, and soon we'll be expanding that to be able to feed all of us, and perhaps even including some community here. And so you have to really sit down and get still on this and decide, where, I realize a lot of people don't have extra money, but diversity has always been a great idea. It works in permaculture. If you lose one plant or one form of investment, you haven't lost it all. So I think that it's probably good advice to have a diversity and to buy a crypto that has a reason to exist and serves a purpose and isn't just fluff. But also to perhaps put some small amount in precious metals. I mean, you can buy 1 gram of gold or an ounce of silver or junk silver, or you can buy goods. For example, an alcohol still with some seeds for planting buffalo melons or watermelons can make hundreds, if not thousands of dollars worth of product that is able to be bartered in any economy and trade it. I mean, you can trade it for cash or almost anything if times did get really hard. So sometimes it's better to invest in some form of money making process. And when you don't have a lot, that really is the best place. And, I've talked to a lot of you people that are on limited incomes. You have maybe Social Security, disability, or you just have a job that doesn't pay much, or you don't have a lot of hours that you can get at your job. So I would encourage you to take a look at your life and figure out how much money you're spending on everything throughout the month, and then get an attitude of being able to delay your gratification for something much greater in the future. Imagine, for example, you cut out that $50 a month cable bill, and you cut out the internet bill, and maybe you got rid of that name brand telephone, and you got a cheap $15 a month cell phone and plan that allows you to get almost $100 more free every month. Stop eating out. Eat simplistically, but get you some Shilajit plant tar so you don't have mineral deficiencies. Maybe eat better food, but less of it, so that you just have a sharper mind. Get more rest. All of these things, start squeezing out every dollar you can, because if you can squeeze out even a few $100s a month and you start buying, even if you just put that back in a little gold, I hate to say when the stuff hits the fan, because have you looked around? That stuff hits the fan all day long. It's already hitting the fan. But we know that from history that when economies collapse, when currencies switch, there's usually a massive spike of inflation. So it's a good idea to have something other than cash put back. If that's a barterable item, like in Venezuela, one of the most bartered items was Bic cigarette lighters. I mean, if you've ever been camping or in a nature type situation with a grid down, the ability to start fire is worth a whole lot. And if you just happen to have some 190 proof soaked in some fruit to go with that lighter, you've got a sanitizer, you've got a fuel, something that could be used as a defense device, and something to just quite frankly take the edge off your angst if you're that kind of person. So just start thinking about these things and make it a daily habit. Get an app for your phone, get a notebook, start writing down every idea you have for a way to make money, no matter how ridiculous. When you say, I wish somebody would do this, or who could solve that problem, or how can I fix this, or you hear someone else say those things, say, business idea. How could I solve that and bring a value to someone? And you'll find that you'll be able to make a lot more money than you would at your current job. But it will eventually require a leap of faith to make that transition. And when you put into work to make the money, you make your investments. Perhaps that investment is in building a small earthen home, an AirCrete home, whatever it might be. Even if it's not in the perfect location, you can get a small lake lot, build a small AirCrete or other structure on it, even a conventional structure. And then you can turn around and sell that for double what you paid for the materials. And if you finance it, you can quadruple the amount of money on top of doubling the money. If you become the banker. So you wind up in a situation much better off than nothing. So yeah, maybe you can't eat out, and maybe you can't go see movies, and maybe you really suffer. Maybe you go to Goodwill to buy your clothes. Maybe you don't get the upgraded phone and you live with that cracked screen for an extra year. But eventually it allows you to build. I mean, honestly, most people can squeeze out enough money in a year to buy a small plot of land and potentially build a small tiny house to live in, and then they can upgrade from there and put it up for sale, turn around, take your money, and then go build something better in a more ideal location. So imperfect and done is infinitely better than waiting for perfect and not getting it done. All right. Yep, as Roger said, buy land. They ain't making no more of it. That's a good point too. I noticed that out here in this area, like the University of Texas, who has way more money than they need, and even though they could go down into tuition and actually provide a service to people, they're actually about making profit, and they have bought a whole mountain and a bunch of other land. I mean, yeah, they let some students come out and count bugs on it, But the reality is, it's a tremendous store of value. And during the Depression, those who had something could become very wealthy. And those who subsisted and lived on the land in community or on a farm, they never knew a depression was going on because things were really no different for them during the Depression than before or after. So, it's just those little lessons to learn. So I don't know if you guys have any more thoughts or questions or anything to add on here. But if, like I said, we'll be doing some more of these. I want to begin to at least attempt to stimulate the conversation on community. There's a lot of ideas. There's the Exit and Build Summit. There's a lot of homesteading ideas. In reality, it's not that difficult to build a self-sufficient life when you change your expectations and you downsize to what you can produce now. I mean, if all you can do is make $300 or $400 a month, on YouTube, learn to monetize everything that you do. If you get an affiliate link, and if you share something with your friends, share the affiliate link. Learn to monetize your life and set yourself free, because even $300 a month for one person is enough to live quite well on when you get yourself into a position of having zero expense. So I just want to encourage you, to help you find hope in all of this, because honestly, this is a tremendous time to be alive, and we have the opportunity to be more free than we've ever been. And as far as community building, we have tools that allow us to do virtually anything on a desktop now. So sky's the limit. And the question is, will we go down the drain with the rest of society, or will we build our communities and build our lives? And I want to also share, let's see. Yeah, right here, I've got in the works, I had a calculator that was a spreadsheet that allowed people to calculate the cost of building their AirCrete house. And, the spreadsheet was constantly being broken, and I never kept up with it. So I'm going to be coming out pretty soon with a new Android phone app that just allows you to punch in anything you want and allow you to see the cost of finishing your house. And this is tremendous when you're dreaming, when you're planning, and you need to know how much you want to save. I don't know exactly how long. It's just me. I'm trying to run 3 businesses. Do workshops and rebuild my life from scratch here. So programming a new app is kind of a slow process when you have to shift gears so many times. But yep, take a look at what I got so far, and I'd like to get some feedback on what you think about that. And again, if you guys have anything to share about what you're doing to make money or what your community is doing, share it in the link, and we can try to share it here as well, because again, we want to stimulate that community for conversation, and we want to begin getting that thought process rolling. All right, here's the new app. We have options to design our AirCrete houses, but not just AirCrete. We have the ability to design, earth houses or simple houses, such as, timber frame construction. And the cool thing is, this app is going to be able to give you a cost and so that you can know pretty much what you're going to spend on your house. So it's a really good estimate tool, and you can choose a rectangular house, and you see we got a rectangular house. Choose the various types of roofs I'd like to put on here, and as everything you select will the pricing for these structures. So it's really pretty cool to have options where you can kind of get a little visual representation, but they'll come in here and get an idea of what the house is going to look like, and it's just a fun toy. You can do cylindrical houses with hexagonal roofs, like you could do a flat shed roof or a dome roof. You could do your typical T-shaped houses.
in whatever capacity you want that to be. An L-shaped house, just be, and whenever you're in to select whether we're having an AirCrete wall, an encapsulated polystyrene wall, a cast earth double wall, which is a highly functional structure that actually has insulation and can even be passive. You can choose your wall thicknesses and choose how high your walls are, like 8-foot ceilings, 10 or 16 foot if it's going to be 2 stories. You can choose the type of you're going to be using in your house. All of this will go into creating a heat. Square foot of windows, you have to determine, what size windows you're putting in and how many, and then multiply the length by the width and add them up, and then put that, select that number from here. The type of air conditioning system you're going to be installing in the house. You can choose the number of doors you're going to have. You can choose the number of bathrooms you're going to have, and the number of zones. Like if you want your bedroom to be in its own heat climate zone and the rest of the house to be in a different zone, either for energy savings or comfort, that's an option. Value of the ceiling, and you can choose a lumber, a do-it-yourself truss, or rust. And once you hit the calculate button, it's going to give you the square feet, and sections updated, it's going to be giving you a shopping list with a database of all the national average prices, but the ability to come in here and actually add your own prices that are current for your local area. And this way you'll know the quantity you need to buy, and the price estimate you get will be correct. So I just wanted to share that. The app is still being worked on. There's a whole lot, but we will be getting this app out and available soon. I don't know if it's going to be on the App Store because they take a large portion of the money you can make, and they tend to frown upon certain price ranges. So probably this is going to be available at Tiny Giant Life.
All right, so that's the app as it's coming along. I hope that it'll help people plan their structures and daydream a little bit about building that house they want, whatever it is. Because again, we do teach workshops in AirCrete, but it's not the building material that matters nearly so much as you building it yourself. Because it's when you're hiring companies and you're going with the typical process. When you hire a building company, right off the bat, whatever the materials cost, the price is doubled. But you also have insurance. You have insurance for employees, insurance for the business, insurance for the job site. You have health insurance, retirement plans, plus the guy who runs the company probably needs a second or third lake house, a new jet ski, a new jet, an airplane ride, or something to brag to his buddies about. And so the expense never stops. I mean, look at Home Depot. How many billions do they spend on, sponsoring various things around the world? They could come down on their price and actually, give some love to the people who are the reason for their existence, but they don't. Walmart recently said, we may close our stores because we lost $13 billion in theft last year, but they made $135 billion in profit. So, we have to realize that when we do business the conventional way, when we build our houses the conventional way, and then we finance the bank with money that was loaned on your credit, they didn't give you anything, then they steal away a huge amount of value to support that system and every legal thing required along the way to build someone else's wealth. And it steals from your life's time, which is what you're basically exchanging for money, until you learn to build an online passive income. And to that ends, if you ever want to learn how to build passive income, this year at our workshops, our second week, which is free this year, we're going to try to add so much value to these workshops because I really want to kick the skill level up. And learning to find a business and set up an online business is one of those days of training, as is learning what it actually takes to grow all of your own food in the most efficient way possible, and doing this new earth building, because you can build earthen walls for under $3 a square foot. Now, that sounds cheap, but of course, the finished price of your structure will probably be more in line with somewhere between $18 up to $46 per square foot, depending on the materials you choose to put into it and what your design is. And so, we are going to be just really upping our game on this, and we're also going to be covering, some basics of engineering and just every little skill set, including an introduction class to the legal stuff and how to legally reduce or eliminate your taxes, how to preserve your money in a cash equivalent that is not taxable, even when you retire and even when you pass on. So we just want to try to basically put all the pieces in place for people to live their life. So, you can find that information for the workshops over at tinygiantlife.biz. I'll put it in the descriptions of the YouTube videos, in the Rumble videos, etc. And so just consider, if you can attend something like this, certainly I welcome you to. And if you guys have any business ideas or you want to present something at one of these classes, just let me know, because again, we want to network, we want to build communities. And Mark, I'm really glad that you're going to build a portable tiny home. That's just really awesome. I love it when people take action and get things done. Like the revolution of this country was started with only 3% of the population. And I kind of feel like it's I don't want to call it a revolution, because, we're kind of tired of going in circles of control in politics. But just the same, I love it when people break the rhythm and begin to move towards something better for themselves. Because once you start down that path, there's no stopping you. And, Noisy Fox here on the chat, he had the song that we played at the intro here, and we'll play it again on going out of this session here. And I'm going to put a link to the description where if you like his music, you can go check out his other music and maybe buy something to support somebody who is doing everything they can. He has been an intern here, and he's been to a couple of workshops, and so we really appreciate Elias. And so again, like we said, if anytime in the future somebody has something they want to share on one of these community outreach things, then get in touch with me, post it in comments. It's probably best, if you want me to put in one of these videos, to go to tinygiantlife.biz and find the contact form somewhere and just send me a message. That way it doesn't get overlooked. It's kind of hard to keep up with YouTube comments when I've got so many directions I'm looking all the time. There's almost nothing you already do in your life that you can't find a way to monetize. Like literally, hey buddy, I found this super awesome pair of scissors, and they're sharp forever, and they're treated in liquid nitrogen, so they're cryogenically quenched, so they never get dull. Whatever. Here's my Amazon link if you want a pair. It doesn't cost you anything more. It makes me some money. Why wouldn't you? Monetize everything in your life, develop that mindset, and get the foundation of that income first. Now, it's not necessary if you're willing to live a natural life in natural cycles. You can actually just go back to nature. But the thing about building, houses on wheels is ultimately, unless you have land, you're still at the mercy of the money you have and the people who will let you park it somewhere to stay. You don't have the security, like even staying on BLM and getting kicked off, by California because cooties was so scary you might infect a rock or something. So I always encourage people to get a piece of land and start small, because once you get a win, like build your master bedroom, and with that master bedroom, live your life and expand that thing into a mansion if you want to. I don't know if you guys have seen those Spanish houses that have all those multiple roof lines everywhere. But the reason they do that is they started with what they needed and they expanded. And I have actually helped people build $2 million, $2.5 million homes that look like a Spanish home. That's what they're imitating. But what they don't realize is that was done by poor people who just built as they had the need. until it became something. And when you do that, you can always turn around and sell it for a profit. Heck, if you're in an area that has lots of tourism or not enough hotel space, build a little room with a bathroom and put it on Airbnb. And we can show you at our workshop in the legal section how to get all of that income to keep, and learn how to generate money apart from time invested. Because truly the chains are broken from the economic beast when you're no longer trading time for money. And so that's good news that you're saving for land. That's awesome. Hold on to it. You will get there. You will get that land. And remember, nothing's perfect. Just find something that works, and you can always make a profit on it and sell it later. Yeah, sheep and dairy products and meat are definitely possible. I will say this about dairy, as someone who has lived entirely on the land and grown all my own food, and have both cows and not sheep, goats. Um, when you get a milking animal, you don't get the day off, you don't get vacations. So make sure you have someone who can step in when you're down or need to spend time somewhere else, because it's an unrelenting chore that has to be maintained or you lose the production. And we found that if you put the babies up in their own pen overnight, and you get up early and you milk the animals, that's more than enough milk for a family. And then if you got other things to do, just turn the babies out on the moms and they will keep the milk flowing, and you won't have to feed the babies. So that works pretty well. But it's a chore. There's no doubt about it. But that's the beauty of having a community. You get more of a break, and yet you still get all the fresh cheese and butter and things you want. That's it. Since we're talking about food too, it is possible in a like a hybrid aquaponic soil system to grow all of the food you need in that garden. Granted, that would be mostly vegan, besides perhaps some eggs, but it allows you to grow a survival level of food in as little as 800 square feet. And of course, you have to learn a skill set of getting your plants in, having nursery flats going, and your plants stay perhaps as many as 144 per square foot. And maybe you have to plant them out into bigger flats from time to time. But basically, when an item in your garden has reached the end of its maximum productivity, probably you pluck that out and you stick another plant in that's been timed for this out of your flat, and it only spends the last 30 days in your larger growing space until it fruits and produces what it's going to produce. So when you develop a cycle like that of intensive, continuous gardening, you really can produce all you need in 800 square feet. And when you break from conventional wisdom, for example, say you want to grow a pumpkin, a pumpkin vine can be massive. And yeah, you might get 4 or 5 nice big pumpkins at the end of the season. But did you know that just like squash, if you pull those pumpkins off when they're hand-sized or even golf ball size, you actually get more pounds of food in a year if you just continuously keep pulling the baby pumpkins, and they prepare and eat just like zucchini squash or something. And so you learn also a skill set of harvesting and pruning, like sweet potatoes, which are one of the best crops that produce more calories per square foot per pound than any other crop. You can pluck the leaves and add it to your salads, or dry and powder the leaves and add it to your soups and stir fries. And it gives you a boost in nutrition, but it also increases your root, makes the roots bigger. And so those are really nice things to know. And we will be covering things like that at our workshop this year. So, Mark, your citizenship, here's the thing about the citizenship status. There's no paperwork you can file. Your slave drivers will never give you permission for anything. You can get a national or an American national passport, and I do have one. And it has allowed me to pass through things and situations that other people can't. But ultimately, it's such a confusing matter. The Supreme Court ruled that there's 3 definitions for the U.S., and you really never know which one you're talking about. And if you write a letter and do a public request of records from the federal government, they can't actually produce a document that proves you're a U.S. citizen. So that's really not the issue as much as learning or knowing what you know and knowing how to stand on your square, as the Masons say, or as they do with the stick and the weights on the end. You know, don't get knocked off your pole. If you can stay standing, you win. And believe it or not, there are ways to conduct your own court with their judges in their courthouses and set your own rules for court, things like where the Constitution might actually apply as opposed to these lawless, frivolous, evil, fictitious administrative courts. In fact, did you know that almost all courts in the U.S. are a branch of the executive branch? They're not actually part of the constitutional judicial branch at all. So in order to have freedom and sovereignty, it's really like a maxim of law says you are going to be most judged by your actions as opposed to what you say or even what you write. But certainly you can use the pen and you can get people into administrative settlements before you ever go to court and you win. Although the level of corruption is becoming almost unimaginable at this point. Yeah, clubs, in terms, especially private member associations or foundations, are great ideas. You know, there's lots of things you could do. What I find right now is generally the people who are in the right mindset, there aren't enough of them in a local area to make it work well, unfortunately. And a lot of the main crowd can be very destructive in many of those aspirations. Yep, private member associations, like I said, you would be surprised what you can do with a private member association because it's private information. I don't share it here on YouTube because I do get flack for it. Even when I leave comments telling people what to do, they actually block my comments from YouTube. So censorship tube is in full swing with the funding of the U.S. corporation, even though it's a violation of their charter document, the Constitution. It seems that even policy and procedure don't stand up to them just doing whatever it is they want to do. It's very interesting how I am in this life. I had a dream last night and pondered it for a while. I have a couple of friends who wanted land, but the problem is we are all separated. Yeah, you know, that separation thing is an issue, and ultimately that's the real qualifying test is will your friends save money and get land? If you could all go together and buy land, you need to have a very clear contract up front as to who gets what and what they can and can't do. Because even though they're friends, you know, quite frankly, crappy stuff happens in life or normal life happens and people get drawn away into distraction. And so a lot of bad things can happen when you try to get together with people and buy land together. But that could very well be the defining factor. Who's willing to put their money where their mouth is? That alone might qualify them. You're attempting to bring us together so that we can put our money together and get something sooner. Yeah, I mean, you know, you can. And I think probably I mean, it depends on your friends. But you definitely need a contract written and the money needs to be put somewhere. And maybe that is a checking account that's open that requires all 3 of your signatures so that all 3 of you have to agree to fund something. And that can get a little sticky. Maybe you need a escrow or a trust and somebody to administrate that so that if one person becomes contrary or has to pull their money out, the other 2 can still go together. But just keep that in mind. Yeah, private trusts are extremely powerful to protect assets because basically private trusts don't get filed. Nobody knows what's going on, who has what, or what's going on. Only an affidavit and a certificate of trust is filed at the county level, for example, so that things become untraceable. At least until the digital currency comes out, and then your social credit score might mandate you have a higher tax or an ability to participate or not participate. Yeah, having helpful neighbors is wonderful when you have neighbors that can look out for one another. And agreement is rare. I mean, our society, by its very nature, it teaches us to be separate and to fear everybody and to be selfish. And so it's very difficult for people to get together and make agreement and then follow through on it. It really is. Plus, circumstances are always changing, and all the shiny toys and circumstances and spouses and friends and family and the opinions of others often drag us away from the potential to do community. Yeah, money is a poor agreement or poor substitute for an agreement. However, I find that in our society, because of the way everybody is, when you do something for free, people don't value a thing. And so if you don't have money put down or property pledged or given, then very often the people don't value the thing you're doing, and the distractions of life just rip you away from that. And that really is the issue, is that currently people value money and little else. Yeah, see, citizenship, you really should aim for not being on anybody's citizenship of the dead, because as soon as you get on a ship, you go right back into maritime law and back under a whole different set of flag laws and protocols and commerce, basically. But part of that is learning that your all caps name is a corporate name. It is a trust that was set up using your name, but it's not your name. Your all caps name, according to the Federal Code of Procedure, is your vessel. It's your transmitting utility as it might be filed with the Secretary of State. And that is something that we have courses that you can get done, is to capture your birth certificate name, have it copyrighted, assign a particular secretary of a particular branch of government to be trustee, and now you have power to enact things. And it's then that your actions matter. In fact, it's 80% mental, that if you can separate yourself and act accordingly, then everything else seems to straighten itself out. I mean, basically, you get the poo test from these people, and they will always challenge you 3, 6, or 9 times before they basically allow you to succeed without admitting you're right. That's what you'll always find when it comes to the system. But if you're unable to stand, if you don't know who you are, then you'll always be put back on the citizenship of the dead and sailed to the underworld, where you will be, flogged, stolen from, and tossed off the plank. Yeah, be one with your LLC. See, I would never do yeah, I mean, sort of. I don't think I would call your all caps name an LLC, and anything that's filed in the public, a limited liability corporation, is something you want to be separate from. It's kind of like even a banker said, own nothing but control everything. It's a very true statement. And basically, because our futures were financed in a final act of treason from the corporation who set themselves up over the Constitution for the United States of America, setting up the Constitution of the United States of America, passing the 14th Amendment, creating a type of citizen that is fully controlled by the Congress. We have got ourselves in a situation that we really must learn to separate ourselves from. Well, you can challenge jurisdiction, Mark, whenever you're a national, but actually anybody can challenge at any time. However, there is a court case that says if you're a citizen, then they don't even actually have to entertain the issue, but you could still insist upon it. So by being a national, which amounts to you just, I can't remember the law and the court case, but basically when you state, I hereby declare and intend to be considered an American national now, that changes everything. And then even then, though, you will still get railroaded. You'll be put on that wheeled device that takes you to a known destination where you'll be shanghaied. You'll be railroaded because you didn't stand. You have to not only challenge jurisdiction, because if you just challenge it, they'll say, well, we'll just get jurisdiction and you'll never hear any more of it. But when you bring it up and when you set your own law and your terms and conditions, like for example, did you know that if a public officer asks you to do something, it's an order? When a grand jury indicts you, they issue a true bill. It's all commerce. When you go to court, there's an order in the court. Did you know you can place your own billing cycles? When you become a secured party creditor, for example, you have basically your own law, terms and services, given public notice, filed with the Secretary of State, that says, hey, I charge $1,400 a minute for my time, $1,000 to present my ID or any document per document. And then when you get pulled over, is that an order or request? That's an order. Okay, let me write down your order. You hand him a ticket as well. You complete an administrative process, and then you take it to a judge in chambers in the private, in equity preferably. You get a summary judgment, and you garnish their wages. Or perhaps you might even find a way to collect on a bond. You have to be careful doing all these things because, the system doesn't like the system being used against itself in the way they use it against you. They pretend that it's paper terrorism, or they pretend that it's terroristic threatening, which is all nonsense, because by them saying that, they're admitting that that's what they're doing to you. But you have to be aware they will always tell you no, and unless you stand and force the issue. And that's another thing. If you're a complainant, you're a complainant or a defendant, you're always under an administrative process. You have to learn how to suck all of those things up into a superior court, preferably your own court, where you have actual sets of laws that have to be obeyed and followed, where things like facts and truth matter, because they don't in a normal administrative court. And it's scary for a lot of people, and it takes some effort. But like I said, if you just start tugging on the thread of the language, it'll all start to unravel for you if you begin to use an etymology dictionary to rip everything apart. Like a judge kicked a Native American out of his court when he said, I'm an aboriginal of this country, and therefore I should have this. And so the judge is like, all right, you're an aboriginal, get out of my court. How could he do that? Well, because anything that starts with a vowel or a vowel and two consonants means it's not the word that follows. So just a hint of how, when you begin to understand language, you can shred them and take control of almost any of these situations just by asking questions and making no claims. And coding codes and statutes are irrelevant. What is the origin of law anyway? Is it not Moses and the Ten Commandments and the king of Babylon before that, who created the slave trade code and the trade code, which ironically is almost identical to much of our uniform commercial code? Did you know that there's 12 presumptions of Roman law that you need to deal with in every court? Basically, all law has been stacked upon other systems of law to give us what we have. And a lot of presumptions are made and things are kept hidden from us. Like equity is a superior jurisdiction, but unless you know how to get in it, you can't. Because you have to empower a judge to put you in equity. You have to overcome the maritime law. You have to overcome the truth, which is a form of trust. What is true is true, but what is truth is a trust where you, the prosecutor, and perhaps whoever filed the charges or information against you are making a constructive trust. But when you walk in and say, here's my express trust, you just broke the whole thing. Then you can deal with maritime law. Where's the contract of commerce? Then you can deal with the common law. And then you can deal with the fact that who created the first law? Who is the creator? When you really get down to it, the real danger is knowing who you are, because the fact is that even if you believe in Scripture, which predates all of these other laws, what you find is, even in the book, that everybody, even people who swear on the Quran, have a Bible underneath, and that is a 1611 King James authorized Bible. It's what they take their oath on. And so when you start quoting it, things start to move. Amazingly enough, even in their book, it says that the handwriting and ordinances of men has been done away with. That means the law of Moses. That means every single law that your black-robed priest of Saturn and Levitical priesthood judges operate under. It's been done away with. The problem is we keep putting ourselves back under the law. And the way I see this new move toward this new order is to put everyone back under law. If you realize how the system's set up now, it was actually a perfect system where you could discharge any and all debt. You had no obligation to pay those. They were never even in your name, and they gave you the legal tender coupon, Title 18 USC 8, to be able to make a legal tender payment. But we just don't know these things, and so they are stealing our lives away because we're ignorant, because we don't have a foundation in how things function. And when a judge tells you, no, I'm going to put you in jail, and threatens you, immediately everybody just tucks their tail, cowers down, and obeys. I mean, how often have you heard of someone being accused of something like driving too fast, driving drunk, carrying too much marijuana, doing something, and even though they couldn't prove it, and they never addressed jurisdiction, and the person could never be found guilty by their procedure, their own codes or statutes, and certainly not by the law, and certainly not by the Constitution, how is it then that they have to just pay a fine and do community service? It's horseshit. But people keep bowing down because they don't know where they stand and they don't know how to stand. And law and contract is a very important thing. They can't interfere with private contracting. And even when we set up our private communities, often we're very weak on doing private contracting. And if you have a lawyer draft your stuff for you, it will be horseshit as well, because it will use adverb, verb, adverb, verb, adverb, verb. And when you look at the rules of parse, syntax, and grammar, you realize they're not writing anything on that document. I mean, it's meaningless babble. That's what they speak, babble, another language. I hate to get off on that too much, but I do get a little bit passionate about it because I just hate to see people ruined over these issues that could just be dealt with if you just learn to write letters. Yeah, exactly. There was no citizenship because a citizenship didn't exist. That's a 14th Amendment thing. And anything created by Congress, they have the godlike power to control. So when Congress created a 14th Amendment citizen and you choose to play that game, then guess what? You are volunteering to play that game. Oddly enough, everything in the system is by voluntary compliance. Consent comes from the governed. Well, that's good, Mark, that you won a jurisdiction case. Motion was dismissed, took it on immediate appeal and won. That's awesome that you won the appeal, because a lot of times more courts want to play that game. I found it to be way more time effective to take the case number, go to the court, say, hey, I need to postpone this and take this to a court of competent jurisdiction. And then I go file a claim in my own court, and I come as the claimant, and I suck that lower jurisdiction up into a court, and I try to make money off of it instead of them make money off of me. So that's my personal preference. You know, a good defense is a good offense. Yeah, common law is actually inferior to equity in so many ways, and it can't deal with a lot of things. Ultimately, we want to realize that we want to be above the law. And if I can take a moment to really twist some people's noodles a little bit here, in And of course, a lot of this depends on how much credence you give to Scripture, but Scripture is massive quotes of trust and law from times at Babylon and before, all the way back to Noah, with the Anunnaki. The only law that really exists right now is the agreements and contracts you make. A Supreme Court case ruled the Clarefield Doctrine, which is getting hard to find through the Google censorship. But basically, in summary, it says that when the governments chose to incorporate and when they chose to take private script, Federal Reserve notes, then they lose all sovereignty and devolve to the status of a mere corporation. So on level one, the only law that exists is that which you make an agreement to. When you check I'm white or black, that's my race. Well, first of all, who are you racing and competing with? What commerce are you in? Are you in a boat race on the citizenship? And black means you have no legal status, and white means you're North African, which means you're not even American. So that's another trick they play. What definition are they using, and what particular dictionary does it come from for that particular section of code? It's a crafty little game of trickery that they play. But yeah, stay out of the courts if at all possible. That's the best way to do it. Remain at peace and filled with love at all times. Never be combatant. And when you learn how to stand on your own square, set your own law, and collect fines for everything that they do, then when somebody inconveniences you, you'll be like, I'm so glad to see you today. I needed some more money. Oh, you want me to do something? I'll be happy to do that. Here's my fee. Yeah, the legal stuff is something that could be an entire week's worth of workshop in and of itself. But at our workshop, we will be covering probably a full day of an introduction to many of these legal topics, because it applies to us in so many levels. From the time you try to buy your land and they want to issue a title policy, to the time that they file a deed to transfer your property to give them a status of a holder in due course on your property, and the benefit of you paying them taxes. So it moves into setting up our community. It moves into how we interact in this world, how we do commerce. What is income, for example? What does CFR 26 code actually, what does it actually say are the people that are, or the things, the corporations that are responsible for that section of code? You start looking into this and you realize it's all a fraud. It's all a farce. So it's empowering, and I love to see the light bulb come on. So that's why we do that introductory section. So here we are. We're coming up on an hour and 45 minutes. I think I'm going to end it here. Like I said, we're going to play Elias's song here one more time. And if you like the music, sometime after this is posted in the description, you will find a link to where you can check out his music. And if any of you have music or goods or services, marketplaces, communities, anything that you would like me to put up on the next live community video, get those to me, and I'll be sure to put your stuff up as well, because we want everybody to prosper. And in terms of that prosperity and money, I want to leave you with one last story. A guy comes flying down the interstate, and he's been driving for 14 hours and he just can't keep his eyes open anymore. So he pulls off at the first little exit he finds in the middle of nowhere, and there's this old worn out building. It's an hotel. It's not a hotel because the light on the H burned out a long time ago. So he walks in and says, do you have any rooms available, and are they clean? And of course the guy behind the desk says, yes, we have several rooms available, and they're kept very clean. And so the guy says, well, can I take a look at one of your rooms, please? And he said, here, and he asked him how much the room is. And the guy said, it's $100 a night. The guy says, and the traveler says, $100 a night? It's kind of high for this little place, don't you think? He said, yep, but we're the only game in town. So he says, all right, here's $100. And let me go check out your room. And if I don't come back, I'm staying in the room. And if I do come back, I'll get my money. So He grabs the key, takes off to the hotel, and immediately the guy behind the hotel counter grabs the $100, races across the street, walks over to a lady sitting at the bar, hands her the $100 and says, "You know what this is for?" And then she takes the $100 and his debt to her is paid. She then hands that $100 to the barkeeper and she said, "Here, this is to pay off my tab." The barkeeper takes that $100, hands it to a guy named Joe at the end of the bar and said, "Here, this is for changing my spark plugs the other day." And then Joe takes that money back over and hands it to another lady sitting at a table. And he said, "And this is for the yard work that your husband did for me." And then she promptly gets up and dashes out the front door, back over to the hotel, and hands the money back to the guy behind the counter. Now, let me ask you this. Did all of those people pay the $100 that they were owed? They did. And yet there was only one $100 bill. So that's just an aspect that happens much, much more in community, in building these parallel economies. You find that people begin to thrive. They begin to have a fortune of wealth in beautiful homes, all the things they need, infinite free time to grow and do the things that matter to them. They even figure out what matters to them, even if that's to travel. Whatever it is, they're able to do. And the internal wealth of a community becomes tremendous because there aren't a ton of parasitical loads. And communities can share cars and buildings and projects and gardens and many of the things that would be a big expense. And once those things are in community, it's no longer an ongoing expense. So I just want to leave you with that idea. In order for us to be truly free, we have to change our expectations, be willing to take less than the system has to offer. And above all, we have to build a systems of support like energy, sanitation, housing, food, water, travel, perhaps knives, tools, all of these things, transportation, all of these things that we need to function. And later we can build in all the luxuries and wonderful things we want, like satellites hanging from a balloon. But until then, we can scale down and start a community where we no longer obtain our needs, our goods, our services, our wants from the matrix, from that Babylonian matrix. Because when they possess it and you take a benefit, you are obligated to follow their rules. And until you can provide everything for yourself, you are stuck in the matrix. You basically have to create your own matrix, one without the parasitical loads, one where everybody can thrive, one where no man is valued particularly more than another, and everyone can spend their time equally and wisely. Yeah, you know, cryptocurrency in a community currency, like I'm going to throw one out there. If you don't have to trade it back into the dollar, it doesn't matter what you use. But I like something like CloudCoin because it's like digital cash. I can give you a piece of paper with some stuff written on it. I can print out some pictures, some QR codes you can scan. I can email you some photographs or a file. And the encryption doesn't happen through massive power use and server farms. All I do is type in the password on my phone and decrypt the money, send it to you, and you re-encrypt it on your end. And then both of our ends will synchronize a handshake just like a hard drive does that stores data to be sure that the checksum is corrupt and there's no copies of that money made and no cheating going on. It doesn't require massive servers. It doesn't require but 100 watts of energy running on a machine somewhere. And obviously communities could build these and put exchanges on them, and communities could even just have a community of communities and share for bigger projects like buying a semi to run supplies between all of the communities. But it's a beautiful thing, and I think digital currency has a tremendous place as a ledger of accounting and even as an NFT. Imagine if your community issued an NFT as your certificate of membership and usage, not ownership, but uncontrolled usage of a house on the property. It would be all digital. It would be recorded. You wouldn't need the county recorder, and it would be untamperable, and it would be dated in such a way that there would be no arguing the facts of the transaction. You could have a copy of the contract in the NFT, the signatures, or anything else. And so I think digital currencies are an awesome way to go. I think that Liberty Dollar is awesome because you can do digital transactions of gold and silver. You can cash out for the price of shipping, and you can buy silver and gold I think it's $2 over spot or something. So there's just solution after solution after solution, endless possibilities of joy and freedom, and the sky's the limit, but we have to build these systems ourselves because, of course, the slave drivers will never give you permission or help. All they'll do is take. Sound like a hippie? Well, yippee. Gotta love those hippies. You know, it's all about what you want. If you want to be a slave, a 14th Amendment slave on the citizenship, then you can be anything you'd like. And sticking labels on things makes it easy to control people's assumptions about what they understand because they think they know what a word means when they don't. But it was a CIA project created to disempower people by using things like conspiracy theory. And even at face value is ridiculous because if you and I decide and converse on where we're gonna meet and what we're gonna eat for lunch, then of course we conspired. It's just one of those tools. Sorry, couldn't help but hit on that. Throw out those labels too. So we're going to call it an end here. Y'all have a really good night. Thank you so much for coming and participating. I really appreciate your time. Share what you can. This video is going to be posted under the Creative Commons license. So, you know, feel free to do with it as you wish. And we'll try to get in a lot more content and include some other subjects and perhaps some more DIY and share some more community ideas. And I would be interested to hear too if you guys were to use some kind of decentralized market, like I would encourage you, let's just start here. Would you be willing to use something like Open Bazaar? It's basically a torrent Tor project, dark web system. You have to have your computer on sharing the things you sell. But it's decentralized and nobody can say, hey, I don't like you or what you said or what you're selling, so I'm going to delete you, your account, or your listing. Take a look at it if you don't mind, and let's get some feedback. Would you be willing to use something like that? And if not, what's wrong with it? How could we improve it? Because I'm kind of thinking about making a decentralized interplanetary file system marketplace that will work on the Brave browser as well as the phone apps, so that we have no need for a central server, and where, for example, when you upload a video, it's fair. Instead of expecting YouTube to give it to you for free, even though they sell you and all your data to the government and all the companies they can, instead, when you host a video and people watch it, they then become part of the network that shares your video, and should it become viral, millions of people who have watched the video are sharing it with millions of other people, bypassing bottlenecks and sharing the load. And then as a number of days pass by and it's no longer viral, it will drop off the internet and off other people's computers until the original person is the only one hosting it again. It's a truly equitable solution where you're not expecting hand-me-outs for someone to provide a service for you. And it can't be shut down and censored like that social network was whenever Amazon just decided to delete their servers because they didn't like what they said when a bunch of people got goaded into going to Washington and doing stupid things or just being around stupid people. So anyway, y'all have a great evening. Thank you again. We'll start looking at those things. I'm kind of thinking about trying to launch some kind of mass awareness campaign once I have a complete model in place for community and money, legal issues, business, as well as a marketplace that anybody and everybody could use. I mean, you could kind of say that Craigslist is a marketplace, but ultimately they will censor you. They won't let you list certain things. They tell you what you can and can't do, what you can and can't say. and they only deal in U.S. dollars. So, I mean, perhaps it would be as simple as getting an open source copy of the Craigslist system, which I think they do open source anyway, and just setting up a decentralized site that runs that service. It might be as simple as that. But somehow everyone needs to come together, and communities building other communities, people building communities is going to be where it's at, because it does take inertia, momentum, karma to really get these things going in the right direction. And certainly we need not wait for anybody, because we can build a life based on what we can do and be a community of one, providing all our own needs in the beginning and showing people that change is possible. So with that, y'all have a wonderful and great evening. Thank you so much for coming.
To let it all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, and disbelief. Free